Hello, pod smashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit Pod Smash,
Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer. We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite. I am Penguin.
and I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
That's right, and tonight we are talking about the marketing sweet spot. It blocked my face, but this isn't a video podcast, so it's fine. The marketing sweet spot is sort of this kind of perfect balance, and it's not actually that sweet of a spot in the sense that, like, it's not that, as far as I'm concerned, it's not that hard to hit, but we'll get to that. The point is, we're talking about games marketing and specifically emphasizing this idea of over-marketing or under-marketing a game, and we'll be talking a lot about that. But overall, I think a lot of games are marketed just fine, right? It's not something that I really notice until I notice it, right?
I agree.
So we'll totally talk about all that and more. But tonight,
we are Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer. So, what are we drinking? I got your back. I'm going to go first. I'm drinking a collaboration between Dogfish Head, of course, and Trillium from Boston. And Trillium is amazing. I've actually been there. They make awesome quality beer. So this beer's called True Action IPA. Of course, it's an India Pale Ale. And on the the can, it is a continually dry hopped India Pale Ale, a small batch collaboration with our pals at Trillium. True Action is a hazy IPA, continually dry hopped with an iconic blend of hops for maximum juicy flavor and notes of mango, pineapple, and candied citrus.
Sounds lovely.
My interpretation of all of that is that what I am drinking is a ridiculously high quality IPA that's just solid. There's nothing crazy. There's nothing like, oh my gosh, rush to the store and buy this. It's just a solid, like, at any point in my life, any season of the year, I could crack this and enjoy it. And I have nothing to complain about with it.
Is it, you tasted it?
Yeah.
I feel like you just
I've already had one.
Okay.
I bought a 4-pack. This is the second one of it. First one on the show, but yeah.
So I'm quickly becoming a very big fan of this line of Sierra Nevada beers. So I'm drinking Sierra Nevada. They are, ironically, it looks like out of Chico, California. And
Neat.
Is that where the Sierra Nevada is? Maybe that's where the Sierra Nevada is, and I'm just dumb. Don't know my geography. Anyways, this is their Wild Little Thing slightly sour ale. But last week I had their like tangerine citrus sour, citrus wheat ale that was like this kind of like little, I think it was like Little Things was the shared names. This is Wild Little Things, and that was like Citrus Little Things or something like that. I don't know. Either way, it's cool. This is the pink version, and they're both delicious. I have enjoyed drinking both of them so far. So yeah, I bought them because they were, I guess not matching, but they looked like they were different colors of the same thing. And and I remember having this one particularly last year. It's very good. So this is the specific description is guava, hibiscus, and strawberry sour ale. Ooh. Which is just, I love all of those things. I love sours. I love sweet. And if I remember correct, I think this was like, I remember saying this tastes like a sour Skittles beer, and I'm going to try it.
There you go. That's a great description.
Yep. It tastes like sour Skittles beer.
Nice.
Yep. So,
the Sierra Nevada is in California. It's on the eastern side, kind of like, California kind of looks like an L, like a very, the letter L, but stretched so that it's not angular. It's obtuse. Mm-hmm. And the Sierra Nevada runs from the center of that angle straight south for most of the state, actually. So,
okay. Yeah,
I guess.
So I just don't know things about California and embarrass myself in front of all of our California fans. So,
I had to look it up too. It's fine. It'll all be underwater one day anyway.
I'm from Virginia, so we don't know much. We don't know much here. Our education system is mediocre at best. So I'm kidding. So yeah, cool. Well, that's what we're drinking tonight. So is there anything? Actually, there is a couple things I wanted to talk about tonight. So
yes,
the thing that we agreed we'd talk about, I want to bring up first, which is I beat Nier Replicant's first playthrough. Right. So there's like. Mm-hmm. 5 endings that you need to do. Similar, I don't know if there was exactly 5 in Automata. I feel like there were 4 that you needed to do in Automata, and Replicant has 5 that you need for the trophy. And so I did just ending A, right? And I had to do it light speed trophy or whatever, which is you have to beat it in under 15 hours. Easy, not bad. As long as you're like skipping all side quests and just focusing on accomplishing that. I took care of that. I also got the only other missable trophy, which is the you have to kill like 100 sheep. So I like blasted through that. That was like one of the first thing I did when I could kill sheep. I started killing them en masse. Anyways, all that's just to say, the ending, I was surprised at one particular thing. So it was great story, fantastic. The way it connected to Automata as well was awesome. And like I had remembered, like in the lore of Automata, you like read the story of what happened kind of to in Replicant or rather the original Nier, because technically Replicant is a remake, but whatever. But like I hadn't pieced it together. They didn't like explain it necessarily. Like they talk about it, but like without until you play the game and sort of realize, like make the connections. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. They are connected. They are like, I mean, it is a direct sequel. I hadn't realized that when I played Automata. But my point is, at the very end, there was a very interesting, pleasant surprise I wanted to talk to you about, or that you wanted to talk about when I explained it to you, which is the credits rolled, and I realized pretty quickly, didn't take me too long to realize that the credits were in alphabetical order, as opposed to order of perceived job importance, like every single credit on every single piece of media made in the last like 80 years. Typically it's like executive producer, all the executive producers, the director, all the best, top billed actors. It's almost like who we paid the most gets credits, like their credit name listed in the credit first.
Yeah.
So the fact this was alphabetical order was actually pretty remarkable. It did. It flattened the curve. So you'd have, lighting designers and graphics designers and producers and actors and testers. Literally just, again, their names showed up in order of appearance. And this is particularly remarkable when you consider the fact that the person who probably made that decision was the executive producer of the game or lead designer, lead developer, whatever you call it in this in that industry. And that's a guy named Yoko Taro. And Yoko Taro, of course, being Y, showed up very near the end but the bottom of the list, which I think is just, again, a very, very...
a little bit of humility going on there.
Exactly. A little bit of equality, sort of saying like there's no most important person on this team. We are all equal. And so we're just going to, like you said, flatten it all, make it, schoolyard person with an A in their name. I wonder if he's going to do it in reverse in one of the second, the other playthroughs, right? Yeah.
Maybe.
Like start with the Z's. That would be really interesting.
So questions, did it have their titles like next to their name, or did it still have their title above their name?
No, it had it next to it. It was like, it was name and title. So if you're just looking at it scroll, you could see
just a list of names.
Just like
what I saw, but I wanted
B, 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 B. Yeah, C, C, C.
By first name or last name?
By first name, I think. That's why, again, Yoko Taro.
Yeah, even more obfuscated. That's great. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. It flattens everything. It doesn't pay all of the extra, like, due to people who make more money. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
It's different. There is a certain space with which you do want to give credit where credit is due. So those who work the hardest, arguably, some folks might say the executive director, the executive producers have the most stakes in the game, like the most decisions and stressed out jobs. But maybe the writers are also just as important.
Yeah.
So
well, the good news is in this game, there's like 5 endings. And each one rolls credits afterwards, so they could do it.
Yeah, I wonder if they do
many times. Yeah, I'm really curious if they switch it up. I don't remember them doing that in Automata, and part of that's because in Automata, at least at the last credits roll for the last playthrough, that's the one where you have to like shoot the credits.
Yeah, like Smash Bros.
Yeah, except in this case, like you cannot stop the credits roll until you finish it. But that's also the thing where they do where like you can delete your save file and like help someone else. So like if the more you fail at it, the more like people's like old save files come and help you.
Oh, interesting.
And then you have the opportunity at the end to say, do you want to delete your save file to help someone else? So the people who had it the hardest are the people who at the very beginning of the game, like beat the game the first time all the way through and then had to like, and then they were like, they gave up their save file so that others would have an easier time. And then now, 5 years later, 6 years later, then of course, like it only takes a few times before you can do it. But
can you do that after you buy the platinum with the in-game store?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So you can pop the platinum and then beat the game and then delete your save to help someone else.
Kind of. No, I think what you do is, I think sorry, to be specific, I believe the platinum store or the trophy store is available after that. But what you do is you don't delete your save file. You back up your save before this. You don't delete your save file. Then you restore it. Then you just got to do it one more time all the way through, and then you
Nice.
offer. That's what I did. Is I did offer up my save to someone else, but after I had gone to the
So
trophy
you could
store
have just
and got the
so you can download your save over and over and over again, and then wipe it and then download it
Oh,
again.
good. Yeah, I could have infinite versions of me out there helping people.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep. So
Yeah, it was
do you
cool.
have
I
anything?
like
Because
that.
I had another thing I wanted to talk about,
Yeah,
but if
what's
you
the
have
next
nothing
thing?
else.
No, that was it.
Oh, so the next thing is for those who are tabletop RPG fans out there, and I'm sure you didn't necessarily see this news or pay attention to it, but there's they're launching the new version of D&D, but it's not called 6E, 6th edition, or at least not officially. They're calling it 1D&D. So they're taking they're taking a cue from Microsoft there, talking about how
Start over.
we're no longer thinking about it in terms of editions. We're thinking it's all 1D&D. But the cool thing is that they're doing a play test, basically like a year-long play test where they'll be constantly releasing new content, updates to the rules for people to play test it and get feedback. As a DM, I'm already trying to catch up to everything that the current edition has to offer, so I doubt I might incorporate some of the rules and then give feedback, but I'll mostly just be doing it from an armchair. That rule seems silly and might have this problem, or that rule seems cool and I like it. So I have read through a lot of the rules, and I do think some of them are good and some of them are bad so far. But the real thing I wanted to talk about that's interesting, that's sort of finally Wizards of the Coast is entering the 21st century. They're going to be launching their own virtual tabletop and like Roll20, and it's going to be using Unreal 5. So it's it's leveraging Unreal 5. It's a virtual tabletop. It's going to be way more customizable and robust.
That sounds amazing.
And then it's also going to have all the D&D Beyond stuff incorporated. So you'll have all of your modules and anything you buy and purchase, you'll be able to buy digital bundles of and get assets on this virtual tabletop. All of your character sheets and stuff will be incorporated as you make them and everything like that. So it's really cool. Probably still going to be fairly expensive, all things considered, but I do think it's a fairly fascinating evolution to the D&D sort of now finally entering. It used to be you could buy the digital stuff or the physical books, but now it looks like you'll be able to get a physical book and it will come with all this digital entitlement. And I think that overall you'll be able to keep it all sort of on one platform, and that platform will have lots of tools to make everything just sort of easier and go smoothly, because as you have experienced, as I have experienced, it's a game of lots of detailed, specific work where you're copying and pasting and filling things out and just a lot of paperwork. It's a game with a lot of paperwork, put it that way. So anything that can smooth that over, I think is going to go over very well in today's day and age. So
sweet.
Yeah. So I thought that you'd find that interesting, as well as our listeners.
Yes. I'm looking at the Unreal 5 digital tabletop video that is part of the announcement, and it looks really fun. That's awesome.
Just don't get me started on the new crit rules. I think they're stupid.
I'm not in that world, but okay.
I know. I said don't get me started on it, and so
No,
if you don't care, then you won't get. No, I'm not. I'm saying I will not get started on it. This is me committing to not getting started on it. That's cool. All right. Anything you got before we move on to our next thing?
There was little tidbits of video game news. You and I haven't discussed what we will do, but the Game Awards are Thursday, December 8th. That's official. And
it's so far away.
It is, but it's on my radar. And
no, it's good that it's on your radar, because I'm ADD and I'm or ADHD. I'm I don't know, it's down the road, too far down.
The PlayStation VR 2 was announced today that it's coming out early 2023. So I know I was thinking that would be a holiday thing, but I'm kind of glad that it's not, to just push that into next year. And that's it. That was it. That's all I got. So let's go. What's the next segment of our show?
Well, the Game Awards and timely releases of PSVR, and 1D&D's cool new digital bundles and features, and Yoko Taro being super egalitarian in the credits are all our favorite things. But
80-bit Pod Smash is our favorite thing.
80-bit Pod Smash is our favorite thing. Favorite thing. Segment of our show where we share with you something we are excited about, something we're digging this week. Again, despite all the things we just shared with you, share more. I'm going to let you go first, and hopefully you can guide our listeners to finding their next favorite thing. Go.
So it seems like ever since I have graduated college and established, there's phases of life. So when you're in college, your friends are all, and your peers are all in college. You're dating, you got significant others, and then everyone graduates, and then eventually that all turns into marriages. And so you're in everyone's wedding, and you're doing the whole groomsman, bridesmaid thing. And then couple years go by, it kind of settles out, and you have your core friend groups, and then everyone starts having babies. There's baby showers and births, and then you kind of coast for a long time. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and most of my peers have all had their second children now. And I was wondering like what the next thing is, and apparently it's groups of people doing a guy's weekend or a girl's weekend while childcare is the other partner. And it's strange because I thought it was like a one-off thing. And this can be in like your institutionalized organizations get together and have like a men's group. But in our situation, it was just our neighborhood, the people that we live with here in this community that I moved to. We'd planned this for a while, but we had a men's retreat. And I'm looking at you, Jimothy, with your beach weekend that you have. You also invited T-Bone and other friends of our show to your place for a fun beach week or weekend, depending on people's availability, that landed on the same weekend. And I had already committed completely in advance to this one. So I was going to be a man of my word and not dip out. And so I couldn't choose both, which kind of sucks.
Ooh.
Yeah. I would love to go, but anyway, my favorite thing was that weekend. It was a chance to get away from the churn of life, the day-to-day grind, and go hang out with friends and play some games like Cards Against Humanity and Spike Ball, and be amongst friends that we played pool and foosball, and there was a dart thing we didn't really mess with, but it was there, and we had some great conversation. We had some good food. And it was fun. It was a good time. I jokingly say that I squandered my chance at renewing and regenerating myself by allowing myself a space to sleep. I squandered that by staying up too late both nights and drinking too much. So I didn't sleep more than 4 hours each night, and I was quite tired when I got home. But here I am. I'm back, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Nice.
That was my favorite thing. So guys' weekend for me, because I'm a dude, but it can be any kind of weekend for any of y'all folks out there. Should make that happen. I recommend it.
Yeah, I can't even think about that. Right now, my oases, my retreats are D&D nights, and that's in part because they're both invigorating to my like mind and relaxing for me, and in a way that like being active with your mind and doing and accomplishing something is relaxing, while simultaneously being like the lowest barrier of entry social experience. I mean, other than the amount of work I have to do outside of it, which again, I know I rant and rave about, but part of the reason I'm so happy to do it is because I don't have to like go like set up my like mow my lawn and set up like a bunch of chairs and make sure to purchase a bunch of beer and have people over. And what am I going to cook? Like, it's just like, I don't care what you eat. I don't care what you look like. You don't have to even turn your camera on. We're going to get together and play a game. So yes, I'm happy to do a bunch of nerdy number crunching outside of that because I like to do that anyways. And then
it's just like the work life in the pandemic. Like instead of like getting up and showering and eating breakfast and coffee, and then you have your commute and you have to like make sure you're ready to show up to work on time and like prim and proper. No, you just roll out of bed in sweatpants and your bedhead and grab your coffee and go to work.
Online D&D is like the teleconference meeting of like it's the equivalent of that to the home to the home and entertainment life. Nice. That's awesome. My favorite thing is, well, this is sort of a bittersweet thing, but we just tonight, like before we put the kids to bed, we went to my son starting preschool. He's going to go there 3 days a week, Tuesday through Thursday. And it is, like I said, bittersweet, a little sad, a little bit like my kid's growing up, and it makes me a little bit sad, but also it'll be a nice, like, it's a nice preschool. It's a hell of a deal as far as like childcare goes. And then like I joked to my wife, I was like, man, our kid's really bad at sharing, but I guess we're paying them money to teach our kid how to share. And he's like, and she's like, yeah, and we're getting a really good deal on that too. I was like, nice. So anyway, so it's a nice facility. It's through a local church. So they kind of do this as part of their like community outreach, but you know, they're also paid full paid employees. So that's cool. And that's my favorite thing is that, you know, again, it's going to free up some mornings for my wife, but like, it'll be nice to not have to like worry about what my son's doing and worry about his schedule. Like, and it's going to get him started. It's awesome to see him grow up. A little bit sad too. I'm sitting there being like, oh, my boy. But, you know, it's cool to see him, like, he's already got a friend there, and he was, you know, talking to the other kids, and just, again, it's nice to see him, you know. He is a child of the pandemic in many ways, so, like, to see him finally get a chance to socialize, which he hasn't really gotten to do much in his life, was awesome to see. So that's my favorite
Man,
thing.
I did not have that emotional response. I was pushing my kids out the door to preschool the day I could. When Jude started preschool, our little
Because you're
one today.
cold and heartless, and
I guess so. It's like I'm exhausted and drained, and they're black holes of every piece of my energy. So yeah, get out.
I mean, I'm the same, but like I still love my kids.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm not accusing you of not loving your kids.
Right. No, actually,
parent's
kids
allowed-
won't
there's a
drain you.
spectrum, right?
There is,
Yeah,
but kids
there's
won't drain you if you don't love them. Right.
Right, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but there's also
There
a
you go.
spectrum, right? Parents are allowed to have different reactions to
Yes.
the stages
At
of
the
growing
same
up.
time, even.
Right.
different reactions
yes.
at
It's
the same time.
called ambivalence,
Yeah.
and we're allowed to experience two
Well,
emotions at
congratulations to you
Thank
and your
you.
wife for a preschooler. That's good news. That's good.
once. I know.
That's good stuff.
I know, man. So yeah, that's favorite things. So that leads us to our final segment, which is DLC. DLC stands for downloadable content. It is a segment of our show where we share something. No, that's not what we do. What we do is we have a conversation you wouldn't normally have about video games. It's a gimmick. It's a bit. I promise I took my Adderall today. My mind is just all over the place. So, well, cool. I'm gonna wing this one because I did not prepare something ahead of time. So we're gonna do a classic blank blank. So the way this works is one of us picks a contest without the other one knowing what they've picked. Some kind of contest, some kind of competition. The other one's going to pick some video game characters that may or may not have some kind of restrictions around video game characters.
Ooh.
Anyways, I literally I'm winging this. So just why don't you pick the contest and I'll pick the characters this time. So competition, give me some kind of competition. I know you're looking at your shelf.
I always do
And,
for inspiration.
I
That's
know,
it.
and so you're trying to get ahead of it, and I cut you off
By
and
saying I got to come up with
decided
a contest.
exactly, and so
All right.
derailed you entirely, allowing
did.
me a chance to now frantically look.
All right. So
for
the
characters.
contest. Can I tell you the contest yet, or do you have to wait for you to have the characters?
I've got some.
All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
The competition is ice climbing.
Oh,
So it's a
interesting.
co-op competition.
Yeah.
So I still used my inspiration that you tried to deny me of by thinking of ice climbers as a character,
Very
and
nice.
decided that you need to pick two characters that will work together attached by a rope to climb a mountain together. So who are your characters?
Wait, so I have to pick four, like two
No.
teams? Oh,
No,
okay.
it's just the two characters you have picked are now, you thought maybe they would be in opposition to each other, but now they're
gosh,
cooperating.
this is even worse.
Yeah, this is hilarious.
So the two characters I had chosen before you had announced the competition were
That's the ones you have to pick.
Captain Quark from Ratchet and Clank,
Oh gosh. Yeah.
and Sam Bridges from Death Stranding.
Yes, I would spit my beer out. That is hilarious.
They would lose. They would lose.
not make it.
So I mean,
There's
Sam
no
would
way.
give it like a college. Like Sam would try. Sam would. He's all about like connection and getting people to work together under very difficult circumstances. But Captain Quark is the one mountain he cannot climb.
And Sam Bridges would be all like, what does he have? This like brooding, I like to talk to you and want to connect, but I'm going to do it in the most like cynical and quiet, reserved
Right,
way.
whereas Captain Quark is like, and he's like, he's not laughing at any of my jokes. He sucks. I don't like this guy. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, like
He's
very
not
much like
inflating my ego. How dare he? It's like, of course I'm not. Like, screw you, man.
Yep. Oh, that would, they would not make it. There's
They
no
would
way.
lose. They can't make
Or
it.
Sam Bridges would just use that like binding gun that you can get, where it's like the electrical like net, and just tie him up and throw him on his back and climb the mountain himself. That's the only way they would make it.
Yep.
Shove him into a container or mummify him. If
Which
you remember
again,
the bodies
he'd be
he had to
like
carry.
so close to the top when Captain Quark would come to. It doesn't matter because like Captain Quark would, just like he does in Ratchet and Clank, find a way to screw it up because of his ego.
Inevitably,
right at the very
yeah.
end. Yep.
Even if it's
exactly.
like his airship on autopilot comes swooping in and shoots him right as they get to the top.
Right. Yeah. That's funny.
That's funny. That was good.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good one. All right. Well, DLC. So we want to hear, listeners, what your two characters and competitions are, or more importantly, what two characters do you think would make it to the top of the mountain, compete against the elements, the mountain, and be able to successfully get their way up the mountain. You can't pick ice climbers because that's obviously like, no, you can't do that. But like
It would
two
have
other
to be
video
ice
game
climbers
characters.
and another character.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
the only way
yeah.
that works.
Yeah, I agree. Like ice climbers and Kirby, which
Sure.
Kirby would just suck one of them up and they'd have a
Right,
3.
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fine. So there you go. There. But you pick something else other than any of those, and tell us who you think, or tell us how you think it would go with Captain Quark and Sam Bridges. How are we possibly wrong? How would they actually work exceptionally well together? We're gonna hear that too. So you can share that thought and more with us. All the
Tell us
places that
all.
Termite will tell you about it.
Tell us all about those details of how Link's shield would attract lightning storms on the mountain over at 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website where you can find links to all of our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, as well as our Discord server. If you are listening to us by way of a non-audio medium such as YouTube or Twitch, you can find our audio-only podcast. It drops every Monday at midnight, and you can find links to all of that. It's things like Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, as well as Apple Podcasts and our RSS feed. You can throw it anywhere you want. All of that can be used and found at 80bitpodsmash.com.
Huzzah. Okay, all right. Well, silly DLC conversations aside, let's talk about our main topic, which is marketing campaigns and video games, and how, on some occasions, they can go terribly, terribly wrong in either direction of being too little or too much. In fact, I think if I were to pick one of these that happens more often, I think it's more frequent that they're under marketed than they are over marketed. But when they are over marketed, it's like
Woof.
a thing. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about all the examples. But first, let's sort of lay some baseline agreements about what we're talking about. Put it that way.
Let's drop some knowledge.
What's marketing and why is it an important part of the game production process?
Marketing is the way in which a company can get information about their product out into the masses. Their advertisements, their billboards, their songs, their trailers, their TV ads, newspaper clippings, website announcements, partnerships with journalists, partnerships with content creators, all of that, all the way down to the artists who are drawing and writing the ads and the people who are voicing the ads, and all of that stuff is the big, giant marketing arm, separate from PR. PR is public relations.
Right.
PR is a different messaging mechanism with a different purpose. But marketing sole purpose is to want to reach as many people to make them want to buy their product. That's
right.
marketing.
It's casting the nets wide. It's being like, we want everybody to know about this, knowing that only a few of them comparatively will actually care and buy the product. But it is a technique that's proven to work because people won't buy the game or buy the product if they don't know about the product.
Yep.
And so, there's some sort of routines or functions of marketing, right? One is to make the games look better than they may actually be, or to emphasize certain elements in order to attract people, right? Like one of the interesting things that came out of Elden Ring's marketing campaign was that the previous entries, Dark Souls, the marketing campaign was all about how this game's gonna punish you. It's so hard. Prepare to die edition, right? Like all that stuff. It was trying to build up and sort of what it was doing. The purpose of it was to emphasize how the game stood out in a market that was where it did stand out, right? Now, Souls-likes, roguelikes, they're a dime a dozen. So Elden Ring was marketed as an adventure game, much more closely marketed to something like Breath of the Wild than something like Dark Souls. So yeah, sometimes you want to sort of like emphasize certain things to attract a specific crowd, to target a specific audience, or to try to sort of like, the other sort of purpose is to, along the same lines, is to try to make it, hey, look, this is something that will appeal to someone in your life. Right? Like you may not be targeting that person specifically, but you might be targeting that person to think about someone else they may want to buy the game for, i.e. parents. So there's a lot of different sort of like sub functions, but the bottom line is get the information out there so people know and buy the game.
Yeah, I kind of summarized marketing, especially for video games, in like 3 little points. Point 1 we kind of discussed was appealing to a desired audience. And this is a little bit different than reach as many people as possible, but appeal to a desired audience. It's like, we know PlayStation is the number 1 selling console, so let's appeal to PlayStation users. We'll release the game on PC and Xbox and Switch, but really get that PlayStation that market because it's so big, and that's kind of catering to. So marketing has to weigh those decisions, and then not just reach them, but ensure that they're getting a positive reaction. So to get a positive reaction, that requires like deciding which channels and medium to communicate. Do you do Facebook, YouTube? Do you do TV ads, newspapers, whatever? Like however you want to get your message out also matters. And the last thing that I wanted to highlight was you have a whole team, a whole studio of people working full time around the clock, pouring their passion into a game, and it all relies on marketing. So the pressure on the marketing team to make sure the game is articulated correctly, honestly, and in a way that honors and respects the writers, the artists, the mocap, like voice acting, the company, to get that message out. I can't imagine like being part of the marketing team. I would feel like so like ashamed if I ruined what could have potentially been awesome just by a marketing mistake. And so there's a bunch of things there. So yeah, you're typing up some extra notes and thoughts.
I am. I figured
yeah.
I figured this is a piece I wanted to add to this question that I didn't actually have in the original, but I wanted to also talk about what are some of the tools and strategies. Like what kinds of things are like, so marketing of course is sort of the function, but what are the individual tools, right? What do they use to market things? How do they market games in particular? So I think that, and again, these aren't necessarily exclusive to games, but games use all of these a lot. Anyways, there's things like advertisements are the kind of the obvious one, right? So that could be anything from not newspaper, but like magazine ads, banner ads on websites, trailers, websites are all advertisements. I mean, the big one in video games is of course the trailer, right? And then there's the difference between the teaser and the trailer, right? What's the difference? Like teasers are just like so teasers sometimes are literally just take the form of like, oh, here's the title,
right? Which might set like a tone, artwork, artwork and a title and like a music, and you're like, oh, I can get a lot of information just from that. Yeah,
exactly.
And then I like sometimes you mentioned.
Go ahead.
Ads, the frequency of ads, like the teaser trailer is a strategy of like the pace at which you unveil more information is also a strategy. You don't want to go too much too soon or like reveal something you can't. So we'll get into those like specifics later. But when you talk about like teaser trailer plus internet ads, screenshots, blog posts, social media, like that's, which social media do you cater to? Do you go to Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter? Depends on where you want to go. But ads are everywhere. So that's all advertisements.
Yep. So events are another.
I think this
marketing.
Is pretty. I would almost say that's unique to video games, but movies and comics do it too.
Yeah,
with like Comic-Con and like Disney's jumping on, but events, right? It's the gaming beats that we have each year. We have E3. Well, we missed it for a couple of years, but you have PAX, you've got Gamescom, you got Tokyo Game Show, you have the Game Awards, which we just talked about earlier, and like there's such big hype around the Summer Game Fest. Is kind of new with the pandemic. Those are the events. Those are like getting the industry together and unveiling new cool stuff and having all of the journalists and publications' eyes on the stuff and like get a whole bunch of hype out there. That's a huge value. It's less prevalent in movies and comics, but you do have your Comic-Cons and you have like the D23 Summit or whatever for Disney and there.
Oh yeah, conventions for everything. I mean, there's anime conventions, there's
but for some reason, like the video game ones are so much louder. They're such a production.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So events are a big one, and again, they are, as much as there's all talk about like, oh, this is for the community. We're just trying to throw a gift or a party for the community. It's like, no, it's all about marketing. It's all about getting the latest stuff out there. It's evident in even awards shows, right? Are essentially marketing tools, and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, we can still have a serious discussion about the artistic merit of certain games, while also seriously acknowledging that the Game Awards is also a marketing tool, right? They wouldn't have so many trailers if it wasn't a marketing thing.
That's why they go there. Yep.
Yeah. So this one is, I do think, a little bit more closer to exclusive to video games, but the idea of release date hypes, right? Like the setting of a release date is a marketing tactic, a marketing tool.
It is.
And so getting again, we talk about this all the time in our podcast. What window is it coming out in? Like, are there other games releasing in that same window? Like, what about those rare times when multiple big titles are all coming out on the same day, right? Like, these are all things that like generate discussion and buzz and hype around a game. and that release date hype gets people going, because again, it's the sort of like, it's supposed to be that time when they confirm that like this is when you're going to be able to get your hands on this thing you're excited about, and that
Yep.
in and of itself is a big deal. So there's usually lots of fanfare and lots of anticipation. Are they going to announce this? Are they going to announce this? When's the release date for this going to come out? And we've seen a lot of changes to the way that's been handled. We'll get to that, of course. But it's part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because release dates and the way they're handled are a really big way that game developers or publishers can either nail it or fail it hard or really misstep in regards to marketing. Now,
Yeah.
not a make it or break it kind of thing, but definitely can really like hurt or harm the buzz around a game.
I think
so.
Like the 101 version example, the perfect example of the easiest looking at the release date hype is Nintendo, because they will famously not move for anyone else. They are in their own world, and they look at the full calendar, and they have big hits on every single quarter, and sometimes every single month within that quarter. There's always something for Nintendo fans, and it's so consistent. It's it's like nothing wavers. You know, talk about like how it's changing, the landscape's changing. We've seen like delays because, we don't want to get in the way of Red Dead Redemption 2, or, like we got to move that out to the next year because Call of Duty is going to blow us away if we try to release here. And so you see all these other companies like shifting and tide with the tides, but nope, Nintendo focused. If you want a great example at release date hype, just go look at Nintendo. You can predict exactly when something is coming. And if there's a gap in the calendar, you can almost predict something's going to be announced at the next event because there's a gap in their calendar. It's wild. But I wanted to throw that out there with the release date hype thing, because
for sure,
that's Nintendo.
All right, so speaking of buzz and generating buzz and hype, viral campaigns are always another option or another tool that are used. Release dates can be part of a viral campaign, but like viral campaigns generally are some thing or another that gets people buzzing about. Again, one of the most famous, of course, being PT, was essentially a viral marketing campaign where they just shadow dropped it. Well, shadow drops are a specific kind of viral campaign, and maybe a little bit different from viral, but the idea being like it's something that was unanticipated, unexpected, not a traditional marketing tactic, and it was meant to get the word out there by spreading it online through discussion about the thing. So that can come a myriad of forms, but
I'm thinking of like Fall Guys was this. Like,
I
don't know if it was intended though, so I can't give them all the credit, but it was free to play on PlayStation Plus, right at was it at the beginning of the pandemic or in the middle of it?
It was right
July 2020, right?
It was an important,
And I just remember it just took over all of the conversation. It was a black hole. It just sucked everything up, and it was like this viral...
that and Among Us in both cases. Among Us like did the same thing, because I think that was the first time that like, so obviously social deduction games had been a big part of like board and card games, analog games we called them in an early episode. Like they've been a part of that for forever. But like Among Us was one of the first times that kind of gameplay made its way to the mainstream video game market, or I suppose the indie video game market in this case. But like it went mainstream really fast, drew a lot of non-gamers who wouldn't typically play video games because, again, it was non-traditional gameplay, a whole different kind of game.
Yeah.
And really kind of, and was during the pandemic, of course, when people are already like itching for
Jonesing.
something to do socially. Right, exactly. So cool.
Demos is the last thing.
Yes,
back
demos.
in the day, you used to subscribe to your Xbox or PlayStation magazine and get little demo discs. A PC Gamer did the same thing, and you can throw that in there. Of course, that's evolved into the digital downloads, but free trials now. PlayStation has their new tier that offers a whole bunch of free trials, and Nintendo famously is offering free trials for things like Splatoon 3 coming up this weekend. It's having a Splatfest for free. You can download that if you want, but yeah, so demos. It's just a way to get players' hands on it. This is a two-pronged strategy.
Double-edged
there.
sword. Yeah,
it's because developers, studios can collect massive amounts of data and almost get a free beta test to test their infrastructure by limiting who can, how many downloads the demo is available to, or how long they can play, and then you can map out player reaction, player feedback, as well as like the heat maps of what they do in the game and how they perform and what they're doing, and you can use all that to glean more marketing information. What is the demographic of the people downloading this demo? Who is it appealing to the most? Who is reacting positive? Is it women? Is it men? Is it non-white folks? Is it white folks? LGBTQ? Is it whatever? Like, you can just get all of that information, and then you can twist, change, and tweak your marketing strategy from that point on between demo and release to like hone in on the market you want to capitalize, because that's what this is all about, making money.
That's true. I would also lump, sort of in this broad category of demos, I would say, and we had a whole conversation about this, so we don't have to. So go listen to that. But beta tests, alpha tests, stress tests, they're in many ways demos. It's the idea of getting people's hands on the game early access, early release. Like these are all different versions of the same kind of idea, which is the game is not officially out yet. Either you pay money in the form of like a pre-order or you pay money in the form of early access. One way or another, you are demoing the game. And that is how we get the word out there. So
good call. You just added a new item to this list, pre-order campaigns. That's another
Oh,
marketing.
yeah, touche. Yep, that is another marketing.
What are the pre-order perks? What are the bonuses? What do you get if you pre-order the game and commit your wallet to a game before it comes out? You get early access to some in-game content, some cosmetics. What do you get, right? That's all part of it, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool. All right, well, then that leads us to our next question, which is, what is the downside of marketing too little, aka under marketing, and what's the downside of marketing too much, aka over marketing? What do you think is that marketing sweet spot?
You said the sweet spot is more like a sweet valley. Or sweet rift.
Sweet nation, a sweet ocean.
It's kind of a big swath. Very few things market too little, too much. I guess that just means the industry knows what they're doing. So like there's fewer examples of like bad than good.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, too little. The game is amazing, right? The market, all the studio, everyone who worked really, really hard on this game come out with a gem, and then it never got coverage. It just fell. It was never curated to the top. No attention. It wasn't marketed enough. So it didn't reach that audience. Or if it did reach the audience, it was in a bad way initially. And it's, first impressions are hard to overcome. So you get that, and then boom, it's hard to overcome
or
that.
like some of those external satellite decisions around marketing were made that like unfortunately underwhelmed it. We'll get to some examples here. I'll talk then about the examples. But if a game comes out around a time when another very similar game comes out that's either from a higher caliber developer on a more popular platform or whatever, that can also seriously like. You are the risk of I would categorize that as under marketing. Additionally, did you may have had lots of ads, you may have done everything else right, but did you communicate that the differences in this game, right? What sets this game apart from its competitors? Why should you play this game? We hadn't actually really even talked about things like previews and even reviews, right? Are in many ways a part, like journalism itself can be a part of a marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really important part for that reason, right? Getting people who know what they're talking about to describe what sets the game apart, what makes the game interesting. It's a huge deal. Like I think there are so many games that misstep in this regard, right? Because they just they know what they're making, but they don't know how to communicate what they're making to the general audience. And that can be really hard, I think, for a lot of developers and marketing teams to do properly. So cool. All right.
Over marketing.
Then what's too much? What's over marketing?
It's like every single time there is a thing this game is shown. And our most recent example is Deathloop.
Well, we'll get.
I know we're giving examples, but it's just so easy to just say the example and then talk about how like every single PlayStation announcement was Deathloop, Arcane, Deathloop, or like constantly.
And they just had it was like every event they had would inevitably talk about Deathloop. And it would inevitably be like a 10 or 15-minute segment of just Deathloop. And it's like, okay, we get it. We've seen now I don't need to play the game because I've seen everything there is about this game. Even to this day, I still like there have been some pretty deep discounts on that game, and I still hesitate to buy it because I'm just not interested because they over marketed it.
They did
like to death.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely other.
It sold well, but
it did. It was a Game of the Year nominee, and yet I'm still just like not finding myself attracted to it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's some other subtler ways you can overmarket a game, right? Like again, being too in the same way that you can undermarket by not properly like considering your release window or release date and what else is coming out at the time. I think you can also overmarket by doing the opposite, where you overestimate the release date window. And like you do it too soon, and then you have to keep delaying it, right? So like Forspoken would be an example of this, where it's just like it's a different kind of over marketing. I wouldn't even necessarily call it over marketing, but it is this idea of like, you guys keep messing this up. You keep like, yeah, sure, you're getting news and buzz, but it's the worst kind of news and buzz. It's the, oh my gosh, you've delayed it again. Are you kidding me? It's now pushed back to 2023. Like, what is going on over there? Figure out when the game is coming out and then release it. Figure out when the game is going to be done and then tell us that date. Because clearly you keep missing the mark here. And that's, again, it's a marketing team somewhere that just does not understand the development process, or developers that are over-promising to their marketing teams what they're able to accomplish in the time they have. And
Yeah,
either
and then
way,
they have
it's
publisher and
detrimental.
stakeholder commitments are involved, and like they're coming in wanting changes and updates and such. It's a whole mess. But again, I always speak to like Nintendo and how they're sitting on completed games almost all the time. Stuff is ready to go now, and it's not even announced yet. They do it famously leaked things in the past, and I should look up examples, but I don't have them off the top of my head.
Sure,
I do know
that's
that
fine.
apparently, according to insiders, there is a version of Metroid Prime that has been completed for the Switch, at least the first one, if not the second one, and they've just been sitting on it, and it's like waiting for that time to like release it.
Right.
And then sometimes they do eat their face a little bit with like Metroid Prime 4 and having to change developers, but that's like one example in a sea of 1,000. But they famously don't announce games at all until they know they can hit the timeline. There's very few surprise delays into next year and slides and slips, and COVID aside, with Nintendo. So they just continue to like nail that. But a lot of people don't.
Breath of the Wild is the one that's hurting me right now. That game was supposed to come out. Remember, it was supposed to originally come out. Wasn't it like 2020 or something ridiculously early?
Breath of the Wild 2?
Yeah, it was either 2020 or 2021. It was notably like delayed, like enough that it was notable and out of character for Nintendo to delay that game. We still don't even have a title, by the way. It's still Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah.
Yep. Because they haven't revealed what the actual, if there is a different title, they haven't revealed what that is. So
yeah.
Anyways, fascinating. Cool. All right, well, let's talk about some more examples then. So what are some examples of either games that were undermarketed or overmarketed? Go.
The undermarketed ones, I kind of did a quick like internet search about some undermarketed games that are good and just didn't reach a good audience because they like just didn't get promoted enough.
Right,
and
that's the quintessential example here, right? Is games that were
apparently the Mad Max game that was close to a launch title for PS4 is really good. I've heard a lot of people talk good things about it. It reviewed well, but no one ever really knew. It was during the Fury Road's release, which you would think there would be a huge marketing campaign and like a big push, but it didn't. And then another one is Prey, which is now, Bethesda, of course, going to Xbox. But that remake of or reboot of Prey that came out in like 2017, supposedly really, really good and didn't get a lot of attention. It wasn't really marketed a whole lot. And then my last example here is Gravity Rush 2, which apparently fixed a whole lot of issues with Gravity Rush 1, and it is like an amazing game. I have no idea. I've never played it, but not marketed anywhere. Like a lot of Japanese RPGs and a lot of anime games that are ridiculously good don't get that mass viral appeal because they're not marketed very well. So those are like undermarketed ones. I wouldn't say well,
right? Especially like
the marketing you do get could be good. You just don't have
mm-hmm.
enough of it. You don't have it. It's not paced correctly. It's not to the right audience across the correct medium. So that's sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
it's okay. In a second, but I just want to say that when I misspoke, it's not that they're marketed poorly. It's just the strategy doesn't fit the game's quality. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too because there are certain games that like this especially happens to games that are like brand new. IPs, right? Yeah, brand new IP, or from like a lesser, like a B developer. It's like it's almost like in those cases you need an extra like special marketing team to like really get this thing out there because an existing and established IP, I would actually say like highly regarded, well-established IPs or developers don't even really need that much marketing. Like you could be a much more forgiving in the marketing campaign of those games than you would be like either an up-and-coming developer, some developer making the jump from like AA to AAA, or a brand new IP, even within an established developer. Like you need to be able to those games, you need an extra special marketing team to be able to push that out. So, I mean, I think of like Horizon Zero Dawn, like again, being undermarketed in a couple of ways. Number one, like the release date being so close to Breath of the Wild, and it was always going to lose out to Zelda. Didn't even matter if Breath of the Wild was good or not, but it was always going to lose out to Zelda. And it was so similar in the way that the game is. And they can't really control that, right? Like they didn't know what Nintendo was going to do.
Yep.
But therefore, they needed a marketing campaign to be like, look how not Zelda this is and why it's its own interesting experience. And Zero Dawn did fine. At the end of the day, like when the numbers all shook out at the end of the day, Zero Dawn did just fine.
Enough to get a sequel.
But it just goes to show, awesome. Right? Exactly. But it just goes to show that, like, it struggled for its first few months because it just ran into that problem. Nintendo was releasing brand new hardware, a brand new Zelda game to go with it. It was just like Like they needed that extra special push to really show what they were about to release. So yeah, that's my thought.
Yep.
Cool.
And the other over marketed example I wanted to circle back and highlight was Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah. Remember when they had the like Night City interview things where they were like Night City Radio or whatever, Night City like news blah. Oh, it was exhausting. And it was all a sham now, right? Because they were like, if you understand now, when we understand what was going on behind the scenes, all those little like segments they did where they were talking to developers, I was like, those people probably like punched a wall as soon as they left that room. Because, yeah.
Of how bad it was. Well, I guess it really only was bad on Xbox One and PS4. So the PC game was fine. I mean, it was still like buggy, but higher end PCs could play the game at least.
You could play the game, yeah. You could absolutely
without the tanking frame rates and the ridiculous physics glitches. So I guess like the developers were focused on the PC game. Maybe there was someone else. I don't know, but you're right. It's like this game's not ready. This game's not ready.
Again, I mean, but like it made international news because it was still at a time. I mean, again, compare now to then, and there were still relatively few next gen consoles, and comparatively few like people there was still a massive audience on those older consoles, and so that was again. It's a timing thing, but again, similarly, they had already delayed the game like 3 times, and they had to release something. We've talked about that ad nauseum, but yeah, it's just.
And they had like Keanu Reeves on stage at a gaming event, which actually was like a good thing. That was actually one of the things that kind of set it into the stratosphere. And then like after that, the expectation was just out of control. At that point, it was just so over marketed. It was like it was too good. It's like too much. This in
and their own there was victims of their own success with The Witcher as well, where it's just like everyone was expecting the sun and they delivered the moon.
Yep,
they didn't deliver the moon; they delivered like
Mercury.
a janky comet.
They expected the sun,
the trash planet. Yeah, the trash planet. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love it. No offense, Mercury. I'm sure you're a great
Mercury fans out there in the world.
I'm sure you're a great hunk of rock out there somewhere. So cool, awesome. Well, cool. Well, then let's talk about let's see, Elden Ring.
Yeah.
I mean, and that game is also a great example of viral marketing where they just, I mean, it was inevitable. Just the Souls community is just insane enough anyways. They're insane people that like it didn't matter what From Software revealed or did, it was always going to become a meme.
Yeah, but they rode that wave. They knew what they were doing.
Oh, absolutely.
They totally like the pacing at which Elden Ring content. Yeah, yep. It was a drip.
And then that leak was intentional. That leak had to have been intentional because it just blew that community like to the stratosphere of madness. It was fantastic. It was so fun to watch. I remember talking about how it was fun to watch that community eat itself alive for months and months at a time. It's so much less fun to go to the Elden Ring subreddit now because now, predictably, it's like any other popular game subreddit. It's just a bunch of clips of people PvPing or doing silly
cool
things,
stuff, crazy things.
Right? You're doing exactly. No hit runs or all hit runs. That's a thing that I found out. It's now a thing. People do all hit runs of Melania where they just take every single hit she throws at them and are like tanky enough to beat her anyways.
That's ridiculous.
It's pretty fascinating. Pretty fast. I was like, that's a new thing. I've heard of no hit runs before, but never all hit runs. Anyways, sorry. But that's as cool as those videos can be. At the end of the day, it was so much more the memes and the cannibalism and people just literally driving themselves insane. A community driving itself insane was more fun, way more fun. And like, again, free marketing for From Software. It's fantastic. So, all right.
I'm going to read a perfect example. I got a snippet of text from, I'm looking at the site now, bestmarketingdegrees.org. They have an article called 30 Successful Video Game Marketing Campaigns Ever. And Grand Theft Auto 5, there was enough here that spread across everything we've talked about so far with all the different avenues that I figured it was a good like chunk of it's not super long, but it's a paragraph. So in October 2011, Rockstar nonchalantly tweeted a link to an official GTA website. So there's your very teaser. There's your hype, your buzz, your viral, right? Just a tweet to a GTA 5 website. The trailer soon followed, and the world licked its lips in anticipation. The second trailer was issued, that was October of 2011, a full calendar year and 1 month. In November of 2012, the second trailer was issued, followed by a December Game Informer cover story. So there's your next story beat, or not story, but there's your next trickle of information. Related murals went up in Manhattan the following year in March. The campaign also included a viral marketing drive, exclusive pre-order packaging deals, strategically placed billboards and posters. Rockstar shelled out a reported $265 million developing and marketing the game. By the time it released in September 17, 2013, gamers were ready to pop. The open world action title made $800 million in 24 hours and went on to rack up 7 Guinness World Records, including swiftest entertainment property to gross $1 billion. That's ridiculous, and it was perfectly done. They knew exactly what they were doing with Grand Theft Auto 5.
I mean, and that's the template, and again, part of that rested on the success of previous. Not every game could do that, but still, it was still a perfect example of how to market a game, and has never really been properly, as far as I'm concerned, never been properly replicated.
I know Spider-Man, Insomniac, Sony, they similarly did stuff like that with they decorated some of the buses, the the subway trains in New York. They decked them out in Spider-Man and in Tokyo, and they had the whole. So they do some crazy things like that, or decorate the side of a building, Spider-Man, but nothing like Grand Theft Auto 5. It's just nuts. No. It's the next level. All Another example is Halo 3. If you remember that, who doesn't? Because Halo 3 kind of overtook everything. In addition to their regular announcement beats, trailers and stuff, they had E3 and trailers. Halo 3's marketing efforts encompassed an alternate reality game, 10,000 global launch parties. Microsoft's famous for doing these launch parties. And ad partnerships with PepsiCo and Burger King. So that's yet another different marketing we haven't really talked about, partnering with fast food or other big food companies, and just Doritos, Halo's all over Doritos and Call of Duty and stuff. And it's another marketing thing. And then Final Fantasy VII, which famously brought the popularity of Final Fantasy to the mainstream from the JRPG niche that was before, Sony launched a 3-month publicity offensive that included a 60-second theatrical trailer, short TV ads, and a saturating print-based ad campaign covering gaming magazines, and here's the kicker, as well as marquee publications like Playboy and Rolling Stone. Remember, go for your audience. This is the perfect example. Final Fantasy VII was all about, in 1997, the teenage boy, the young adult boy, male, go after him. And what does the most what magazine has the most readers that are white males that are young? Rolling Stone and Playboy. Sony also targeted comic book fans and made a promotional deal with Pepsi. Final Fantasy VII has sold over 10 million copies, making it the most popular game in the series. And then my last perfect example, sorry, this is really quick. Fallout 4, Bethesda, Todd Howard famously came out and said, Fallout 4 is releasing in 6 months. And everyone went nuts. They held all of that information until 6 months prior to release and then just unleashed it. And it was ridiculously successful because it drove that hype, that viral. So there you go.
Yeah,
there's
Smash Bros. Did more or less the same thing, right? With Ultimate, where they were just 6 months from now, it's coming out, and also everyone's here. Boom. And then it was just month after month, it was new character announcement. Then the Grinch leaks and all that stuff happened, which may or may not have... Right. It was just a whirlwind, right, of activity. Yeah. So it's another good example.
It's a good one. Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Let's end here then. Our last point, because then I want to wrap up. Yeah. Yep. Let's talk about how video game marketing then has been affected by COVID-19. It's we cannot get away from, but I think maybe of everything else, except for maybe development itself, right? The hands to the keyboard, development itself. This might be the thing that's been affected the most.
Yeah.
By the pandemic. So go ahead and do that.
Yeah, my first take on this. If you remember, Borderlands 3 famously had a Twitch plugin that would allow the streamer's audiences to manipulate the bosses and the loot that you would get. And it was a live, very dynamic feature catered directly to streamers. And the reason why I highlight that exact point in time was because that was pre-pandemic. We were already headed in the direction of marketing campaigns directed towards influencers on Twitch and streaming platforms, Facebook gaming and YouTube gaming. And the COVID-19 pandemic has just accelerated that. Electronic magnetic engine just launched. Go for the influencers, go for the podcasters, go for the streamers, and cater to that market. You have massively, insanely popular streamers like Ninja and PewDiePie playing games like Apex Legends and Fortnite, just like throwing their income and marketing dollars at them and getting sponsorship deals and esports and getting all that stuff, the attention, and all of that is just ramping up. And the pandemic separating us all from in-person activities just continued to push that, because that's where all of the gaming audiences gravitated towards. They all went to online communities. Think about Animal Crossing and how amazing that was for streamers. Like that just took over all of my social media feeds, at least because of how it was marketed towards like share your island, share your house. Like Nintendo knew what they were doing, and they catered to that without even like being as upfront about it as like Borderlands was, where it was like, here's a feature for Twitch streamers. So that's my answer. I think, how has marketing been affected by COVID-19? Just accelerating the push towards hitting the Twitch platforms, the streaming platforms, and getting dollars that way.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I also think that like obviously the delays and the on the release dates, that has been a big way in which marketing has been affected. So that I think is one of the other profound ways, right? Like this area of release dates being sort of a core part of how games are marketed, right? Like again, a release date also sort of sets the window in which the marketing team has to work, right? And what they drip feed release at a time. But if the game's not ready, then they have to do all this stuff around, right? And then they have to write apology letters to the fans, right? All that are part of the marketing tactics, the sort of feigned deference, right? The sort of feigned apologetics that like are just really meant to kind of try to smooth things over for the fans who may be ticked off enough to not buy the game, right? So that I think has been one of the biggest ways, is just like the development cycle itself being so affected that they've had to then like remarket, like figure out how to market games, and they still haven't. We're still feeling the echoes of that, right? All the delays, almost every game that was supposed to come out this year, almost every game.
Yeah.
Every game that did come out this year pretty much has at least been delayed once. And every game that was supposed to come out this year, almost every game that was supposed to come out this year originally has also been delayed to 2023. So they're still feeling like, how do we, in a post-COVID world, how do we set release dates when development has been so drastically affected? And will we ever catch up? I think is now sort of, I think we will, obviously, but, and we had a whole episode on development cycles and what ways in which development may ramp up in the next coming years. But for now, we're in this spot where games take too long to make, arguably. Production was halted even further by COVID. People are behind. Things are backed up. The whole system is now gummed up, and marketing teams have not readjusted. So yeah, I think that's a big area in which
seemingly have not readjusted.
Sure, right. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they haven't readjusted, because they they keep
some have,
seeming
some
to.
haven't.
It's not like they're
like
making less money, but I think there are some
true.
games that have probably suffered as a result. I wouldn't be surprised if Forspoken, right? Forspoken had a pretty
they're definitely
good.
a victim. Yep.
They could have been. I mean, they could have come out if they had stuck to the sort of original. I mean, that game's been delayed like 5 times. If they had stuck to their spring release date this year, it might have been a smash hit. If it had been ready, I get it. Like, obviously, it's going to be better that it's delayed. Like, they didn't want to cyberpunk themselves, but
yep. But that was exactly what I was about to say about the adjustment.
Yeah.
The statement I made about like seemingly they have not adjusted, but then when you have the cyberpunk debacle, and I think that has affected a lot of the pacing for release dates, and the marketing is the fallout of that. But I'm looking at The Last of Us Part 1, which is supposed to come out in September. They announced it. They showed off footage. Of course, it leaked first, but it seems like Naughty Dog had that perfect with coming off the heels of Last of Us Part 2. What actually shifted the most was the online portion of The Last of Us Part 2, and that just got like canned or delayed, not canned or canceled, but like super delayed, but turned into more. So the promise was it's delayed, but it's going to be a standalone game because we want it to be amazing, and they showed off a bunch of features that blew our minds. But with that came, here's The Last of Us Part 1 remake coming out September 1st, and it was announced close enough to release, and they've trickle fed that out. It looks perfect, and they just nailed that. But then maybe I was going to say an example of not catching up would be Midnight Suns. There was apparently some like character trailers released highlighting combat specific to each character superhero on YouTube, and I had no clue they were even there, which is indicative of bad-ish under-marketing. It's like I didn't even know. And then it got delayed, and some people were bummed. And I was like, I didn't even know the game was ready. Like, I'm not surprised it's delayed at all. And they were like, oh, it is ready. Right. There's gameplay footage, and there's a whole confusing mess. So there you go.
Sweet.
Yeah, we'll learn.
Yep, we'll figure it out. So
we'll learn
all
today.
Right, well, Yep. Well, what we want to learn what your thoughts are, listeners, on our marketing campaigns, the marketing sweet spot, overmarketed, undermarketed games. Share all of your thoughts and more. Where are we on the mark? Where are we off the mark? What have we not considered? All of those thoughts and more we want to hear. And Termite's going to remind you where you can share those thoughts if you have them.
Do y'all even care about marketing? Why?
Maybe,
Why?
yeah, maybe not. Maybe not,
Let me know if you care over at 80bitpodsmash.com. Maybe you stick your head in the sand and you just wait till a game's on the shelf to buy it. Maybe you are chomping at the bit with every trickle of information you can get, falling victim to the Grinch leaks. You can tell us all of your experiences over at 80bitpodsmash.com, 80BIT All of our social media outlets are there: Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, and Discord, as well as our audio podcast dropping live on Mondays at midnight every single week on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and all the other major platforms, as well as our RSS feed. All the information is there. 80bitpodsmash.com. Go get it.
Don't pick on me too much for the Grinch leaks, because I recall a statement you made multiple times on this podcast that was Cyberpunk 2077 will change gaming forever.
Yeah.
Although I guess you weren't technically wrong, just not in the way that you
at least that was communicated through the official channels of CD Projekt Red. It was not a speculative leak.
Sure,
so
and
I'll
even
defend myself
worse.
in that
so
regard.
they specifically
lied to me. Yes,
misled you as opposed
completely,
to Nintendo.
And I'll eat
did
that
come
whole
out
thing.
And say,
yeah,
exactly, right. So it's okay. We all sometimes get wrapped up in the hype. That's a lesson. That's a lesson for only the most cynical person doesn't when it comes to this kind of thing, and nobody wants to be friends with that person anyways. So
you just got called out.
You did get called out. If you're sitting there wondering why you don't got any friends, it's probably because you're cynical. Maybe you could let your guard down and open up your heart to love.
And be excited about a video game occasionally.
Yeah, just let yourself be excited, overexcited, and then let yourself look like a fool. Nobody wants to be friends with the cynical, cool guy who's never a fool because he never lets his guard down. That's what I'm saying.
And then eat the disappointment like a person and go, eat it.
Just say it, humble pie. A little humble pie. Be like, yep, fell for that one. Sucked. It happens to the best of us.
Lick your wounds. Get excited
because
for the next
I am,
one.
in fact, the best of us. I'm just kidding. Next week, if you got to the end of the episode wondering, what about that episode they said they were going to do on cheating? Well, thanks to Termite, hours before we were supposed to record, he decided to just double check, and thank God he did, because we did an episode on cheating years ago, episode 99. We talked about cheats, hacks, and exploits. We decided to retool that episode to specifically talk about aimbot, like I believe we promised to talk about in that episode. I have a whole episode on aimbot alone and the technologies that support it, and we will do that next week instead of doing that this week so that we can have time to research it proper. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week is aimbot. You may say, what's an aimbot? Well, we'll find out next week.
You will. And with that, we will see you next week.